My name is Lisa. I'm 15 and I'm exploring the call.
My name's Chris. I'm 17 and I'm exploring the call.
My name is Morgan. I'm 17 and I'm exploring the call.
My name is Gino. I'm 16 and I'm exploring the call.
My name is Crystal. I'm 15 and I'm exploring the call.
My name's Brian. I'm 17 and I'm exploring the call.
My name is Bethany. I'm 16 and I'm exploring the call.
My name is Keenan. I'm 18 and I'm exploring the call.
My name is Casey. I'm 17 and I'm exploring the call.
Welcome to Explore the Call, a podcast dedicated to helping teenagers explore the possibilities of serving God in full-time ministry.
Each session gives you practical tools to begin discovering God's will for your own life. So sit back, listen, and gear up for the journey.
Can women be ministers? Can they be ordained? Why do some denominations limit the opportunities women have in ministry? Welcome to Explore the Call. This is Pastor Gene, and today we're going to talk about the all-important role of women in ministry. If you're a female who is exploring the call of God, you have probably already wondered about this. Believe it or not, the role of women in ministry can be a controversial subject in some churches and denominations. That is why I would like to address this red-hot issue in the next 2 podcasts. In this podcast, we'll look at the reasons why some people believe women should not be ordained for ministry. In our next podcast, we'll talk about why others believe women should be ordained into ministry, as well as practical ways young women can begin preparing right now while they're in high school. However, you need to know something right up front. Explore the Call and its sponsor, Zion Bible College, does not believe there are biblical grounds to limit the role of women in ministry. Zion has experienced firsthand the fact that God does indeed call, bless, and empower women for ministry. The school was founded in 1924 by a spirit-filled, God-called, and ordained woman by the name of Christine Gibson. For over 85 years, the school has experienced the favor of God in preparing young people for ministry because of the foundation built by a woman who was obedient to the call of God upon her life. At the time of this podcast, 2 of Zion's 7 presidents have been women. Although the school's sole purpose is to prepare young people for full-time ministry, over 55% of Zion's student body consists of females pursuing the call of God and preparing for full-time ministry. With that said, let's start by looking at why some people do not believe women should be ordained into the full-time ministry. The main reason is that they believe the Bible discourages women in ministry. There are only 2 passages in the entire New Testament which might seem to prohibit women in ministry. The first is found in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 34, which says, "Women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission as the law requires." However, there is a problem with this isolated interpretation. Instead of identifying the specific situation that Paul is addressing in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, proponents of this view try to equate Paul's demand for silence as him addressing a call to ministry. The entire context of this passage is addressing the disorderly, chaotic, and confusing use of spiritual gifts in the Corinthian church. That is why Paul would later close this thought unit with the admonition, everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way, in 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 40. Apparently, there were women in the Corinthian church who made a significant contribution to the problems that Paul was addressing. Paul chose to address the specific situation and the individuals involved. However, Paul is not addressing a woman's call, her qualifications for ministry, or ordination for that matter. To lift this verse out of its proper context is a step away from sound biblical interpretation. The second verse that is often used to prohibit women from serving in ministry is found in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 12, which says, "I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent." Paul is again addressing the subject of orderly worship to a church in the wings of chaos. Ephesus had several problems that seemed to center around a group of influential women. Apparently, these women participated in disorderly worship and misguided public prayer. That's why Paul gave instruction in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 1 through 2. But they also distracted men in worship with immodest dress and materialistic apparel. Paul had to address that problem in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 9. These women also practiced gossip, idle talk, and non-productive discussion, as Paul would address in 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 13. He also addressed them being involved in heresy and false teaching. It seems that these issues were being initiated by a group of women who recklessly ignored social customs and usurped authority over the men in their lives. To correct the problem, Paul is using the authority of his apostleship to place a temporary restraining order upon their teaching ministry and vocal participation in worship. However, some sincere but misguided believers cut verses 11 and 12 out of the context of the local church problem and try to paste it as a universal rule relating to all women, in all times, in all cultures, when in fact, Paul is giving Timothy advice about how to deal with heretical teaching and the behavior of women within the Ephesian church. In light of Paul's obvious and repeated recognition of women in ministry in nearly all of his writings, it seems obvious that he is addressing an isolated incident with a specific solution that is not meant to be universal. In other words, the situation in Ephesus did not warrant a prohibition of women in leadership everywhere. Otherwise, Paul's instruction would have been repeated in all of his other writings, but they were not. On the outset, Paul does appear to restrict women from speaking in the church in these two specific instances of Scripture. However, Paul was addressing specific problems that involved immature women within the context of certain situations. Using these two scriptures as proof texts to restrict all women from speaking publicly would be as unwise as using Paul's admonition to Christian slaves to be obedient to their masters in Titus 2:9 as a biblical endorsement of slavery. So, if you're a young woman exploring the possibility of God's call to ministry, be encouraged in knowing that the problems of a few centuries ago do not speak to the authenticity of your own call. Well, in our next podcast, we're going to talk about why we believe that God does call, empower, and ordain women in ministry, as well as some practical things that you can do to prepare now. So keep listening, but more importantly, keep exploring.
Thanks for listening. In addition to this podcast, you can interact with other students, check out other cool resources, and even connect with an online mentor at www.explorethecall.com.
Explore the Call is a free resource provided by Zion Bible College. Zion's sole purpose is to teach, train, and release students for Spirit-filled ministry. If you would like more information on how Zion Bible College can help you on your journey of exploration, check out their website at zbc.edu.